Hello, everybody, and good afternoon, fellow lovers of the outdoors, and welcome to Curious by Nature by Deep Roots. My name is Maddie Ball. I'm going to be hosting today. Let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what's blooming in your gardens. The gardens are growing, and with them, the level of maintenance practices that are required by native gardening. And today, we're going to be going through three maintenance practices that Deep Roots own Cydney Ross implements in her personal garden. But before we get into it, we have a few announcements to get through, starting with our sponsors. Today's episode is sponsored by the Missouri Department of Conservation. We want to thank them for supporting this show as well as for their work protecting fish, forest, and wildlife resources across the state. I'd also like to thank our viewers and donors like you for making programs like this possible. So, something about me is that I am an apartment dweller, which means that I don't have a yard yet to garden with. But fear not, fellow apartment dwellers, because native plants are not large yard exclusive, and you, with a patio or porch, can make an impact by planting container gardens. You can join my team member Kay Thomason for a gardening workshop where you're going to explore how to select the right native species for containers, how to choose appropriate pots and soil, and how to take care of those potted plants. There are a few available dates for the workshops, each at different locations, and each workshop is the same. So please only sign up for one. But you can find more information and details about these planting parties on our upcoming events page or by following that QR code. Guys, this Saturday, in 2 days, is our first Habitat Garden Tour of the season, and it is not too late to register. We have a lineup of three incredible residential gardens in Prairie Village and Waldo with even more incredible gardeners who have a lot to show off. These are self-guided tours open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. that are sure to inspire. And then you can take that inspiration straight to the Prairie Village municipal offices where we will be hosting a plant sale the same day. And most importantly, you should bring your mom. Because what is a better way to celebrate Mother's Day than going on a native garden tour and then going to pick up some native plants and planting those plants together, you and your mom? Sounds like the perfect way to celebrate. So it'll be great, and I will see you all there. And for our Johnson County residents, we are partnering with Contain the Rain once again to hand out free, that's right, free native trees. All you have to do is remove an invasive species from your yard, bring proof of that removal and your proof of your Johnson County residency to the native plant sale this Saturday, and then you get to take home your 3-gallon native tree. So use the link that I think is being shared in the chat. Perfect to learn more about the invasive species you can remove, the trees you can pick up, and to register for the event. Please make sure you register so that we don't run out of trees for people who are signing up. And remember, this is for Johnson County residents only. Okay, our next Curious by Nature episode will air on Thursday, May 21st at noon, covering native plant pairings with Cydney Ross. We've been talking a little bit in the past episodes about sociability and how to use information about how plants spread to determine which plants go together. But we've only scratched the surface, and so in a couple weeks, Cydney will be breaking down sociability for us and teaching us how we can use that scale to plant a perfectly balanced garden. So be sure to tune in with us live. That way you'll be able to ask your questions. And for you tuning in with us live today, you can ask your questions by putting them in the Q&A section. Please do not put those in the chat. That way we'll be able to find them all together at the end of the video we'll play here in a little bit. This webinar is also being recorded, and all of the resources are available for you in a show notes that will be sent to your inboxes after the show. All right. And with that, I think it's time to bring my lovely coworker, Cydney Ross, out to the virtual stage. There she is.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi, Cydney. How's it going?
Going great. I've been saying this for months, but spring is here and
Spring is
every
sprung.
day, spring, spring, sprung. There's
That's
always
the way it
something new to
goes.
see out in the landscape and ba 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 ba, I'm loving it.
Yeah. So what have you been geeking out about recently?
Okay, so as you'll see in today's video, I talk about like the immediate impact of planting natives and how I'm seeing so many insects. And I just keep seeing even more. Like the more mature my garden becomes, the more it's a buzzing. And so that's been very exciting. Yeah, so I've just been, every time I leave my house, I have to budget in at least a few minutes to appreciate what's
To
happening in the garden.
explore.
I know, I'm like every moment you see something new and you can appreciate something
Yeah.
different, and it just brings me a lot of joy.
As a certified stopper, your walk from your front door to your car takes like 10 minutes
It
because you
does.
gotta stop.
It really does. I'm like, I know I'm just walking like maybe 20 feet,
Yeah.
but it's going to take me at least 10 minutes to do
But
that.
there's so much to see right there in that 20 feet. And how special and cool is that?
Seriously, though. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your favorite bloom happening right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's always a tough question. So right now I'm gonna go back to kicking it old school with my original favorite native plant, which really got me excited about native plants in general. And it's my background. It's the blue false indigo, the Baptisia australis. I took this photo at the Discovery Center a couple weeks ago. You can see the really cute bumblebee here. I call this the gateway plant into the native plant world because it does not disappoint in its blooms. It has like these vibrant purpley blue blooms that look like kind of like pea flowers. It has a
Yeah,
nice shrubby appearance, even though it's an herbaceous perennial, and it's awesome. It does take a little bit of time for it to get established in gardens, so if you can have patience and determination, you too can have a
it's worth
stunning
it.
plant. It's worth it. It's gorgeous.
Worth the patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And stunning in the fall too. Very
So
goth.
beautiful. Yes, I'm quoted in the Martin Times newspapers calling it my goth baby that shines bright, and I still stand by those words. So, yeah. But what about you, Maddie? What are you geeking out on in the garden
Gosh. Goth
lately?
baby that sounds bright should be a sticker, a bumper sticker. That's so funny. Um, One of my favorite native plants is just beginning to be in bloom. At least the last time I saw it, about a week ago, it was starting to bud out, which gets me excited. And that's woodland pinkroot or Spigillium marylandica. It's a great shade plant, but it's got these little red flowers with yellow centers and yeah, one that the first time I saw it, I was like, what is that? I love that so much. And now I get to see it again. Here it comes. So yeah,
That's such
that's
a
one of
cool
my faves.
plan. It also, I love that the woodland pink root because it can handle shade, it can handle some sun. Um,
Super
And
that way.
it always, I'm getting better at recognizing it because it comes up just slightly later in the spring. But I'm always delighted when it does appear. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a hummingbird plant, those little red tubes. We
Yeah.
love a hummingbird plant.
Ooh, little
So,
tubular flowers.
yeah.
Yeah. Hummingbirds love them. People love them. What's not to love about
Well, I'm excited to show everybody what's been blooming in your yard. Do you think we should just jump into it per
let's
se?
dive in. Let's
Yes.
dive in.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Enjoy this episode.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Curious by Nature with Deep Roots.
I'm Cydney.
And I'm Maddie. Cydney, where are we standing today?
Okay, y'all, today we're actually at my house visiting my residential native garden, which I started, gosh, 2 years ago. So, yeah, we're here in the front yard right now. Exploring, seeing what's blooming and talking about what's been going on over the past couple years.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Boom. Check out this garden, everybody. It is blooming. It is booming. It looks so good. Cydney, do you want to start by showing us around? And let's start like maybe where you started your
Let's
garden.
do it.
What part of
Yeah.
your yard?
So come on over here, not very far. Just right here. I just started on this corner, slowly removing the turf manually. I used a shovel and a pitchfork to take it out, square by square.
Square by square. And
Foot by
did you
foot.
do all of this planting in one, like the whole garden that you have now in this front yard section? Was this all one
Man,
attempt or did it grow over time?
It grew over time.
Okay.
So I started in phases, especially because I was doing so much manual labor to remove the lawn. So over the course of a couple months was the first wave of plants. And then in year 2, so last year, 25, I added some more species diversity in there. But yeah, so started by removing some of these chunks, planting into it immediately, and then mulching everything as I went along.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, all kinds of things would have just popped up into the space.
How many plants did you end up starting with, Cyd?
Well, I had lofty goals of sticking with 6 species. We've got golden groundsel, we've got Monarda bradburyana, copper shoulder sedge, eastern blue star, cliff goldenrod, rose verbena, robin's plantain, pussy toe, spring beauty, Missouri evening primrose, wild sweet William, Penstemon digitalis, which is foxglove beard tongue. We also have Sunder mountain mint, we have wide mountain mint, we have rattlesnake master.
The list goes on.
But I ended up with 25 species.
25? Oh my gosh.
25.
What were the initial goals that helped you pick out those plants?
So initially I was like, okay, if this is my front yard, I want it to be welcoming, maybe a little more formal or semi-formal, so that people are excited about native plants, especially those who may not have gardened with native plants before. You know, be the trendsetter on your block, if you will. And so I selected first a sedge, a full sun sedge that I could weave throughout the entire garden. And then I focused on the edges first and kind of worked my way into the middle of the garden, thinking, okay, people are most likely going to walk along the sidewalk, or I'm walking up to my front door, so I want to experience my garden there first. And I also started out with a woody species, which was supposed to be a service berry, ended up being a spice bush, surprise. That's okay. But a structural plant in there too. So kind of these anchoring points. And again, thinking about how I would move through the space and how others might move through the space.
Yeah. Have your goals since you started changed at all?
A little bit. So I tried to keep it simple, but that's just not in my nature.
Yeah.
I know I practice, or I encourage people to start simply, especially if you're new gardeners, but I just love gardening.
You've been doing this for a long time too.
I've been doing this for about like 9 years. And so I know all of these plants I put in here, so I can recognize them as soon as they pop up as little tiny plants. I know what their general growing habits are going to be, what they're well suited for, what they're not suited for. And so just that experience has made it easier for me to add more species into the garden.
And you kind of have a sense of how much time you're willing to put into the garden as well.
Yeah.
Which that can also help determine how many plants you can handle.
Totally.
How much space you can handle.
Yeah. So start small.
Do you want to walk through and show us like what you're excited about in your garden right now?
Yes, I would
It's looking
love that.
so good. New blooms.
New blooms,
Hashtag
baby.
new blooms.
Hashtag new blooms. So I'm really excited about this eastern blue star, which in our last episode you saw Amsonia ciliata, which is its cousin. So Amsonia tabernaemontana is going to get a bit taller. So
You can
it's
already see it. It's already
you can see
much
it.
taller than the...
Yeah. And so actually, even though this is technically not a woody species, it's an herbaceous plant, it does have that height, which I was thinking about just like how that might anchor or position me in the space. So planting that there is kind of a nice, like, I don't know, give it some height. And then there will be more height later in the year as we get additional blooms coming through. But I'm excited about that plant. I see bumblebees and carpenter bees on it all the time. They're so precious. They sleep on it too sometimes, which is just darling.
And it's great texture.
It's great texture and it smells really good. Also,
The whole yard smells so
it
good.
smells really good. Not to brag,
Wish
but
you could smell this through the screen.
smell-o-vision. It's
Smell the vision.
lovely. I'm especially excited about the copper shoulder sedge, though. I am a fellow sedge head. Sometimes it's hard to identify sedges. In fact, a lot of times it's hard to identify
It's
sedges.
nearly impossible speaking for myself.
Yes.
I cannot.
I cannot either. Not well. But this full sun sedge, Carex bicknellii, has done fabulous here. It does flop a little bit, so it gets a little taller. So I'll just trim it back, and then it'll sprout up some new foliage and be at a shorter height later, which is fine.
Yeah. What else is in here blooming right now? You're a spring girl.
I'm a
You
spring
love your
girly.
spring plants.
I love my spring plants. Let me
And
get
there's
up.
so much good color happening.
Yes. I'm just going to get on up in here.
Yeah.
We've got Wild Sweet William is at the end. I don't know if you can see this little friend here. Wild Sweet William. The lance leaf coreopsis just started blooming. That's the yellow blooms here. And I've also got some of my first of the season, short bee balm, Monarda bradburyana, or Bradbird's bee balm, or I just like to call it short bee balm because it's descriptive. Like, let's just cut to the chase. So this is a fun culinary plant. Its leaves can be used as an herb, like oregano. Make it into teas. I actually put it in my shortbread. It's delicious.
Delish.
The flowers are cute and edible
Yeah.
too.
The flowers look like Muppets characters.
They do look like Muppets.
Little crazy, hairy guys.
They're crazy hairy guys. Till the end. Oh, and there's 2 tiny gnats mating. What the heck? There's so much nature happening in here, you guys. This is why I love gardening with native plants.
Wait, I have a question actually.
Yeah.
How quickly after you started planting these plants did you notice a difference in activity in your garden? Bugs and bees?
Immediately, immediately. So often we think about like blooms supporting pollinators, which of course they do. But it's not just about that. It's about the foliage. It's about the roots. Insects eat all parts of plants and then feed everyone else in our ecosystem, including people. And so the effects were instant. So regardless of your location, your footprint, your ability, even if you have a native plant in a pot on your porch, you're still welcoming nature home and reaping the ecological benefits of having native plants and the joy of native plants. So yeah, you can see the effects pretty quickly.
What would you say is your favorite part about native gardening here in your yard? That is,
I think just seeing things change over time. It's really, I'm always surprised, pleasantly surprised, even if there's challenges. Like, I'm always very excited to see how things are going to change over the seasons, over the years. And frankly, just coming out of a winter slump and coming into this makes me feel alive.
Yeah. This is like the best welcome into warmth.
It is.
It seriously is.
It is.
So much joy.
So much joy. I know we didn't have like the longest or strongest winter, but it still felt long. Winter always feels long to me. And yeah, I always look forward to spring, just the renewal. I know it's cliche, but it's true.
But it's true. And when you experience it like this, how can you not be cliche about it?
I know. It's just so romantic, to be honest.
So we've got some taller plants. Looks like no trees.
Yeah, 0 trees.
So how would you define this habitat?
I would define this home habitat. It's full sun, so it's getting more than 6 hours of sun a day. So I would define it as prairie. Of course, it's not the same as like an old growth prairie, but the impacts are still here to support nature. So in terms of the site conditions, I would define this as a prairie type habitat. So full sun species are going to thrive here. I do have like a slight gradual slope. But I would say the soil's pretty average. You will see that there's a lot of clay in the soil.
Yeah.
But there are native plants that are clay busters. So there's a native plant for
clay busters.
Clay busters. Power Rangers.
Clay
buster. Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I was thinking. I think that's what I was thinking.
I was thinking Power Rangers.
Clay busters.
Clay busters. Actually, I'm going to show you exactly the plant. I need to edit out today. Okay, so here's the plants, though, I need to edit out. So here I have 2 gray-headed coneflowers, Ratabita pinnata. Awesome plant. Way too gregarious for this little garden section. It will eventually only be that if I were to let it stay and go to seed. In fact, I'd only planted 1 plant. I'd removed 1 last year, and now I have 2. Math isn't mathing. So
What plants are you worried it'll compete with the most in this area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in this area, I'm worried it's going to outcompete the sedge, the golden groundsel, even though this looks prolific, right? It is short and it fills in gaps, but it can't, outcompete something of this magnitude. It'll definitely overwhelm the wild sweet William. The foxglove beard tongue might be okay, but it is on that higher end of the sociability scale, whereas everything else in here I would say is more like low to medium. And so trying to keep with that type, because I do want to have this amount of biodiversity, and also the gray-headed coneflower gets really, really tall, which is normal. Like our plants in the summer and fall, as it progresses through the season, they get taller.
Gray-headed coneflower, it's a Ratabeta species, so it's not actually a coneflower.
Right.
An echinacea species. Thank you, Common Names, for making everything confusing. But are echinacea species equally as prolific?
They're not.
Okay.
And actually, I have a few babies of Echinacea pallida, which is the pale purple coneflower, and Echinacea paradoxa, which is the yellow coneflower. So I don't know where we're at species-wise. I have a lot.
So when you say you edit it out, are you just moving it? Are you taking it out completely? What do you do with the plant you edit out?
Yeah, it depends. So for the situation of gray-headed coneflower, I'm going to rehome it. Not my home. It's going to go somewhere else. Maybe the Discovery Center.
She's got her tool. She's got her shovel. It's ready to go.
Okay, this is a trenching shovel. I love this shovel. It's like the only shovel I really care about in my life. I'm in a committed relationship with this shovel. We're exclusive, guys. Okay, so what you want to do first is actually cut back the foliage so that the plant stops putting its energy towards growing out, and will instead put the energy towards establishing its roots once it gets replanted. This is also going to make it easier for me to determine, like, am I removing the plant I want to remove rather than accidentally removing, I don't know, like the sedge that's growing up right next to it.
Dang. Oh, see, this is, I think, what makes me as a new gardener, and I imagine other new gardeners, nervous.
I'm just hacking.
So much confidence.
Oh, you know what? I need to wear gloves.
Oh,
Safety first, friends.
yeah. She's gloved.
Gloved and ready, guys. It's not that this is a bad plant. It's just not the right plant, right place, right purpose. For the most part, you can get away with moving them or editing them out completely. I will say, some plants with like very dense root systems, like I'm thinking shining blue star or river oats, cordgrass, even like some of our tall grass species like little blue stem and big blue stem. The roots are so dense that it is like almost impossible to dig them up later. So do a little research if you can. If you aren't sure, ask your friends at Deep Roots or ask your local native plant nursery. They will be able to help you figure out. So I'm taking this trenching shovel and I'm going to gently start prying it. I don't want to leave a huge crater in here, but also I want to try to get as much of that root ball as I can. Now you are going to lose some of the roots in here, and that's okay. Okay, so now I have this clump, right? So you want to leave some of the roots on, or most of the roots on rather, but remove some of the soil because I don't want to have a huge crater left here. But you don't want to knock off too much soil that you have no roots left. So essentially I'm thinking, okay, how heavy is it with all that soil on it? And can I afford to get rid of some? And I would say yes, especially with how prolific gray-headed coneflower is. It's very easy. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And now I don't have a huge,
Booby trap.
yeah. Now it's ready to be transplanted or composted, depending on what you want to do with it.
Yeah. So if you were gonna give that plant that you just took out to a buddy or someone else, are you temporarily planting it in a pot or something?
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I would immediately.
Unless you're
unless
going
you're
straight there.
like right there. Yeah, unless it's like immediately going in. You want to keep those roots moist. So whether you heel it in, like I moved a raised bed, so I have some loose soil back there. I could stick it in. I could put it in a pot with soil, or even wrap it with wet paper towels, just so the roots don't dry out, because that will kill the plant. So like if you are gonna move anything or transplant things, you need to get them in the ground stacked. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, heard those roots tear. Good ASMR. Check out that bad boy. This is a honkin' root system on this gray-headed coneflower. Not only does it have fibrous roots, but it's got some heckin' tubular taproot. Tubular? It's got taproots. Tuberous. tuberous tap roots, which is great because it's helping sequester carbon and filter polluted stormwater. Obviously, it's holding the soil. You can see just like how thick that is.
Oh my gosh. That one chunk off the side is crazy.
Bonkers.
Yeah.
So check out this tool. This is a Rogue tool. Brand is Rogue. And it's like some kind of fancy steel made in Munden, Kansas. Shop regionally.
Shout out Munden.
Shout out Munden. Yeah, I used it earlier this week to plant daffodils and tulips. Not native, but they are spring ephemerals, I just learned, technically. But yeah, it's really great for just like weeding or getting like a nice little chunk of earth out. I was thinking because it's really sharp on the end, I might be able to sever this root, but the angle's just not right. So I'm going to get the proper tool for the job, which is my sharpshooter. Here we go.
Aha. Gotcha.
Gotcha. But now I'm going to put in the little, honestly, I don't know if it's pale purple coneflower or yellow coneflower. Because we grew these in the greenhouse and the label is melted.
Oh.
But either way, I know it is an echinacea. And I know I'm going to plant them here. So that's my next step. So now that I have some nice loose soil, I can go ahead and pop these babies in. And so there's actually a few in here. So I'm just going to tump this over. You can see the roots have developed quite nicely. Didn't look like a whole lot was happening on top. We've got some good roots here.
Nice.
Right, look at those, okay? So you want to be careful not to damage those. I'm just going to set it right in here. Since these are really young plants, again, they're less than a year old. They were growing in the greenhouse at the Discovery Center. I want to make sure I weed around them. I'm also going to put down some mulch once I get the other one planted to help suppress any additional weeds from coming up. So I've planted these like under a foot from each other. That's okay. I really want these to have like a nice massing effect. So planting them closer, also because they're so young, the likelihood of them all surviving is pretty slim. And that's breakage for you. Yeah. That's some breakage. It happens. So that's also a good reason to, when you pick whatever species you want in your garden, get multiples of that specific species because they're not all going to survive. Let me introduce you to my favorite mulch, Soil Pep. It is composted pine bark mulch, and I got this from Soil Service, one of our local native plant. They sell native plants. They also sell soil, pots, chemicals, all kinds of things you could want, even non-natives like herbs and veggies. But I really like this mulch because it's really light. Aesthetically, it's pleasing, and it's going to break down and add nutrients to the soil because it's already composted. So now I'm just doing a light dressing. You all, mulching is really important when you start a new garden, but please, 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 pretty please, do not dump 6 inches or more of mulch. Not even 2 inches. Like, I'm doing not even half an inch. I'm talking light dressing. And notice I'm like Salt Bae here as I'm tossing little bits of mulch. So mulch suppresses plants from growing. All plants, whether you want it to or not. And if you put a lot of mulch down, it's really going to suppress anything from growing. But in this case, I'm just doing, again, a light mulching around my new little plants so I can help keep the competition down. And then I'm going to watch this area like a hawk over the next several weeks and months to make sure I keep all the white clover out, the mock strawberry, pretty much anything. I want to give these plants the best chance that they can have to get established.
After you plant a new plant,
Yeah.
when is it okay to not be watered as frequently?
Yeah, I think that that is like the big question, right? So 2 weeks is generally my rule of thumb. The first 2 weeks of planting, you want to make sure it's really well watered.
Every day you water every day for 2 weeks or?
No, not every day for 2 weeks. Like,
Yay!
Giggling watching us out
I know,
there.
I was laughing at myself.
Benny, did you see people are excited about your holster?
Yes, you
Do
guys.
you
I
want
feel
to
like
share where you got that?
I do. I'm trying to remember where I got it. I think I got it at Feldman's. If you haven't been to Feldman's and you love a hardware store and baby chickens, get ready.
I do.
It's like
I
a
love
farm.
both hardware store and baby chickens.
Yeah, it's like a farm supply store. I'll have to take you there sometime, Maddie. But yeah, so it's an electrician's tool belt. And I'll make sure to find a link to put that in our show notes that we'll email to you so we can be twinning, y'all. It's great. It's held up. I've had that since 21, and it's every season I have to dump out the dirt and stuff that accumulates in there. But
It gets good use. It's like the perfect size. I love it.
it is. It holds my pruners, my paint scraper, my tool sharpener, pens, and it's endless. It's great. I love it.
Great. Well, let's head over to the Q&A. Just really quick, we had one at the top from Claire asking to repeat my favorite plant that I mentioned earlier. That was woodland pink root, or Spigalia marylandica is the Latin name for that one. And she's a cutie, so definitely check it out.
Cute. So cute.
Okay. Um, Kathy is wondering, Cydney, if you started from seeds or plugs, or was the so-called service berry a pass-along plant? Those are two separate questions.
Great questions, Kathy. So I started my garden from plugs. I purchased most of the plants I purchased from our local native plant nurseries like City Roots and So Wild and Missouri Wildflower Nursery and Crit Site. And then I did also have some of those little babies that were left over from the Anita B. Gorman's Go Native event where they grow native plants annually in their greenhouse. Natalie Eisen has done a fantastic job growing those this year. So they were little tiny babies. But yeah, I started with plugs because it's easier to determine for me what is going to come up, and it's a little the closest thing to instant gratification you'll get with a native garden. Of course, you could plant a garden from seed. It's just it has different challenges and things to consider. And then that service, the so-called service berry, the one that ended up being a spice bush, it was, I believe I got that from a giveaway and it was mislabeled. It was a bare root. So it was, I mean, it looked like a twig. It was, I don't blame, I don't blame where I got it from. I also don't blame myself for not knowing. It's just one of those things, you know,
Yeah.
it happens. So
Yeah. And she looks cute in there.
she's very
Not
cute.
the, just not the goal.
I know.
Going back to your seeds and plugs really quick. So you started with plugs. But you work with seeds sometimes now because I know you do winter sowing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Talk about that a little.
Let's do it. Okay, so yeah, I do encourage if you're starting a new garden to start with plugs, especially if it's like a smaller scale planting. But once you determine what species you want to have in that garden and they're getting established, in the wintertime, I go through my garden like a little fairy and sprinkle seeds of those plants I already have in there so that I can see more of them. Like, yeah, just throwing them in there. Thankfully, my neighbors now know who I am and what my proclivities are for gardening obsessively. But yeah, so I do that because if you think about it, our landscapes, they have a seed bank, right? Plants have dropped seeds in there in the past and they will continue to do so, whether it's things that are growing in that landscape or birds going by and whatnot. So I like to add seed because I want to contribute to that seed bank and see more plants that I intend to have in that garden. So that is something I think is really cool and has been successful in the gardens I've worked in so far. So, and I like just being able to garden in winter too. So, yeah.
Yeah, keep the gardening alive.
Yes.
Awesome. So Deborah's wondering how you manage your time when it comes to garden maintenance and also what you prioritize maybe during this time of year when you're practicing maintenance in your garden?
Deborah, I love this question. Thank you so much for asking this because if anyone has heard me gab about starting gardens and maintaining them, it doesn't matter how good of a garden design or like you've picked the perfect plants. If you don't maintain your garden, you'll lose sight of those goals over time because other plants come in. And so in spring right now, so it's beginning of May, I spend a lot of time in there looking for things like white clover. Unfortunately, there's some non-native invasive sweet autumn clematis across the street that keeps coming into my garden. So I look; those are the two like main weeds, which is a subjective term, just a plant in a place you don't want. So I will focus on that. But actually, as we were watching this video, I was like, oh man, I love violets, our native violets, but I have a nice thick patch of it that I'm actually going to edit out probably later today before it continues to spread because it's a great plant, but it is filling out a space more than I want. So I'm going to remove those and knowing I have violets elsewhere in the garden, which I do want to keep. But then once we get into the hotter days of summer, I want to encourage you all, and I speak from my own experience, like it gets so hot in Kansas City, and I actually had heat exhaustion about a decade ago. Uh, and I haven't recovered from the heat. So I really struggle working outdoors when it gets really hot. So something I'm going to try this year, which I want to encourage y'all to do, is maybe like 10 minutes a morning or in the evening when you get off work. Go out there and pull some weeds and just touch the grass, right? Touch the soil, get out there. Even just a little bit of time on a daily basis or, every other day, you can have a big impact in your garden. But that is that, and that's something I'm going to try this year, and I will hold myself to it, and I will take some videos and share with you guys as we get into those dog days of summer. So consider that, consider doing that.
I love the 10 minutes every morning strategy. I think A, it's good to include it into your routine, so it becomes just a normal part of your day and you remember to do it. But also, what a great way to start your day out there in the dirt.
I agree, Maddie. I always feel so much better after I've been out in my garden. Less so when it's 110 degrees outside, but if I'm just spending 10 minutes first thing, it's like reinvigorating and gives me purpose, right? It makes me feel good. My yard looks better for it, especially when things get wild and woolly later in the season, as they do.
Deborah also asked what in the garden was making it smell so good when we were talking about smell of vision. We were talking about the Amsonia species, I think, the eastern blue star, Amsonia tabernae montana, but also the rose verbena is the star scent. I think we talked about that in the last episode. It's got just a beautiful perfume to it. Is there another plant that you're loving the smell of in your garden right now, Sid?
You know, I yes, those two are so florally fragrant. Like it's like flowers, like it smells like quintessential flowers. Um, I also like kind of the herbaceous smell of the short bee balm, Monarda bradburyana. That has been it's got a spicier scent to it. And if I'm like, weeding around it, I'll brush up against it and it releases some of that fragrance. And I think that is also a fun thing to smell. So yeah.
Love that. Um, okay, let's see. The wild sweet William.
Oh.
Claire said that that was a shade plant. Is it both sun and shade? Do you know what the sun tolerance of that or shade tolerance, I guess, plant is?
Sure. So, Claire, that's a great question. Yeah, so it's marketed as a shade species, which it is technically. You find it in your woodlands, but if we think about it, the time of year we see it in the woodlands, if you look up, there's no foliage in the tree canopy at that time. So it's actually getting some direct sunlight. And my front yard has doesn't have a lick of shade. So it is getting 6 to 8 hours of direct full sun. But if you notice, as the season's progressing, plants are getting taller and they're going to provide a little bit of shade on the wild sweet William once we get into the hotter days of the year. Same with I have Spring Beauty, which is a spring ephemeral. I got that from So Wild Natives, which I was so excited to get last year. And I was worried about putting it in that full sun garden too, because I'm like, oh, it's a woodland shade species. But again, because come up so early, they can handle and need that sunlight, but then knowing other plants are going to shade and protect it once it gets really hot, and even more sunny later in the year.
Yeah. So, okay. And then also going back to another question from Deborah about when you dug your soil out foot by foot and then planted native, did you backfill with other soil before covering with compost and mulch? Can you talk a little bit more about that process?
Sure, yeah. So, I when I dug out and removed just that sod layer, I was just digging down like a few inches to remove the that. Um, I did not backfill with other soils. I did not amend my soil at all beyond the mulch, which is that soil pep. So as soon as I planted those, just like you saw in the demonstration, I top dressed with soil pep mulch, which is a composted pine bark mulch. So, and technically it is adding nutrients to the soil, but I'm not amending the soil like you may hear in conventional gardening. Like in the past, like tilling was such a big thing. It can still be a thing for like growing in the like vegetable gardens and plots like that. But I don't till my soil ever. And here's why. It's because it destroys any root structures that are holding your soil. It also kills our microbes and fungi, which we need. That is like part of a healthy soil system. I am damaging it to the extent of removing the sod, but I don't want to go any deeper than that, because yeah, it just is hard on our earth. And so adding those plants, our native plants especially, that can handle things like clay, and other difficult gardening conditions, if you will. They do just fine. They're used to our clay soils here, but that mulching does help. That was a very long answer to that question, but yeah,
I think you talked about a little, have you been learning a bunch about soil health and it's really interesting. So I'm sure we'll be talking about it more and more
yeah,
because it's important and
it is
so,
important.
yeah,
Yeah.
important.
And before we jump into the next question, Maddie, should we do our pop quiz?
You know what? Yeah, I think we should. I think we should go ahead and do it.
And real quick, Maddie, for our lovely audience, I just want to say if you have recently won our pop quiz, if you could maybe refrain from trying to answer just so other people can win. Yeah, just to be fair, because we have some very fast and very smart people in our audience, and so I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to win this prize. So,
Good note.
yeah.
Okay, and speaking of prize, what is today's prize, Sydney?
Okay. So if y'all went to Planet Native, our annual native plant conference that happens here in Kansas City every February, you may have listened to the incredible Danae Wolf. And so she has this book, Grass Isn't Greener, Less in Your Lawn, Go Wild for Wildlife. It's the everyday conservationist guide to bringing nature to your yard. And she also wrote and illustrated, you guys, Deep in the Branches. It's a children's book about leafhoppers. It's
Oh,
awesome. And in her presentation at Plant Native, she talked about how these leafhoppers, I think it's the oak leafhopper, um, actually tends to their babies. So one lucky winner is going to get a copy of each of those books and a Deep Roots bumper sticker because, love your local native plant organizations, y'all.
I love those illustrations on that book. That's so
Oh,
cute. So cute. All right. If everybody's ready, I'll have you direct yourself to the chat. That's the box, the little speech bubble at the bottom of the screen. Click on that and then make sure the blue box says everyone and not host and panelists. That way everyone can see your answer. And here we go. I'm about to say it. Everyone get ready. Get your fingers ready. Um, Please name the plant that Cydney edited out of her garden in this video.
common name is fine. Or Latin name. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
We got a win. We already got a winner. Um,
Noted.
is Audrey Dallas. Hey Audrey, what's up, girl?
Yeah.
Yes, Ratabita pinnata, which is the gray-headed coneflower. So congrats, Audrey. When we send out the show notes tomorrow, please respond with your mailing address and we'll send you those books. I'm so happy for you that you won, and thank you all for playing. Really great, great focus. We can't stump you guys ever.
No, never. Okay, back to our Q&A. Barbara's asking if your sedge or any sedges, but we'll talk about copper shoulder sedge, the one that's dispersed throughout your yard. Does that spread by seed heads? And so does it need to be trimmed to avoid it, prolifically taking over your yard?
Great question. So I will say I'm new to copper shoulder sedge. And so far it hasn't been overly gregarious and out competing other plants. Now okay, so from what I learned from Missouri Wildflower Nursery, sedges, yes, you can grow them from seed. They tend to be slow growers from seed. And so I'm going to pay attention to see how they spread. They don't seem to have rhizomes, so I don't think they're going to spread in that way. I think they will gently expand over time by seed. So that is my educated guess on that. So, but great question.
Do you remember how many plugs of that you planted in your yard?
So I bought copper shoulder sedge from Crit Site in Belton, Missouri. Shout out to Kevin. He's awesome. And they sell like big flats of those small deep celled plugs. And I think I bought 50. I ended up only planting about 30. And some of them I'm going to move. I have them a little in some areas. I'm like, they're not quite working there. So I'm going to move them to the other side of the garden that needs more spring plants anyway. So yeah, big fan of that plant. But yeah, I went 30 and I love to encourage folks to pick a sedge for your garden and have that be the anchor that ties visually everything together. So kind of like planting your flowers in a matrix of sedges. It's great. That's a tip I learned from Scott Woodbury. He used to be at the Shaw Nature Reserve and in charge of the Whitmore Wildflower Garden. And so I've really taken that to heart. And I agree. It just creates like a visual cohesion through your
Yeah.
entire garden. I love it.
Yeah, and that was a special sedge, full sun sedge. A lot of them are also known for being very shade tolerant, which also makes them great additions to woodland gardens, prairie gardens, whatever you got.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think we probably have time for one, if not two more questions. Um, so any questions that don't get answered in today's episode, we will include those in the show notes, which will be sent out after today's show. Um, so don't worry. But River is asking, how do you know which plants would be stressed by digging up and transplanting, such as the coneflower versus the serviceberry?
Yes. Okay. So, so a lot of this has to do with the time of year and knowing the type of roots you're working with. So does your plant have fibrous roots like the gray-headed coneflower we saw, or is it a taproot like a lot of our milkweed species, or even have corms like our blazing stars? And so it's more about the technique of digging them up. So I also want to direct folks to a really great resource, Missouri Wildflower Nursery Catalog. In this year's edition, they actually talk about best practices for moving plants when they're growing. And so they talk about, cutting back the foliage and but making sure the depth of your digging, that's critical. So you saw with the gray-headed coneflower, I was digging pretty deep, like over 12 inches into the soil. Compare that to the golden groundsel, which is that Pacra obovata, which has very shallow roots. That was only like 4 inches deep of digging. So making sure you're giving it a wide enough berth, like into the soil, so you're not severing all of the roots. Making sure you're going deep enough. So, and that gets a little advanced because you need to know what those root structures are like. But thankfully, there's really great resources online. And actually, Neil DeBoll and Hillary Cox have a great book that my friend Ginger Miller was telling me about that shows like more of this information. So I'll include that link in the resources too. So I would pay attention to that. And then time of year. So I know I mentioned in the video that you can technically transplant stuff in the fall, but springtime is the best time to divide and transplant these things because it gives the plant time for the roots to get reestablished. If you do it in the fall, be cautious about how late in the fall you're doing it because if we hit winter, those herbaceous plants, they're no longer going to have their roots growing through the winter. Unlike our woody species like trees and shrubs, they do tend to still grow in the winter season. So that's something to consider too. But also making sure you're not I try not to transplant or move things when they're actively blooming because the plant is putting so much energy into the blooms. And yeah, so that's something to think about too. But if you have any specific questions about like a specific species you want to ask about, feel free to reach out to our team at Deep Roots at hello@deeprootskc.org. We're happy to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining and watching. And thank you, Cydney, for your really insightful answers. And we hope you'll in with us on May 27th,
21st.
21st. There
It
we
looks
go.
at my calendar. Yeah, May
May
21st,
21st.
guys. Sociability of native plants. We're
Native
talking about
plant
the
pairing.
spectrum.
It's
Talking
going to
about the
be
mix.
awesome.
It's gonna be great. Hope to see you there.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.